Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Chief, for making the clear connection between climate change and the continuing challenges of fighting forest fires. And also, I agree with Senator Daines that collaboration is what we want to pursue. Every state has forest resources and challenges that requires us to work very closely with the Forest Service, and that we depend on the expertise and what the Forest Service brings to the table. And that's why so many of the questions from the committee are very specific to what's going on in our states and your activities in those states. So in that regard, I did want to take a moment to thank you for your commitment to protecting Hawaii's precious landscapes in the President's 2017 budget. And this includes prioritizing Hawaii's island forests at risk, proposal for the Land and Water Conservation Fund, as well as the inclusion of both the Ho'omau and Halemano Wilderness Area in Hawaii through the Forest Legacy Program. And as you know, our natural resources in Hawaii are facing numerous external threats, and your support in conserving these landscapes very much appreciated. And I'd like to, of course, invite you to visit Hawaii sometime to see all of the challenges and opportunities and the activities that you are very much engaged in Hawaii. And there's nothing like actually visiting a place to gain a fuller, I think, appreciation of what's going on. I wanted to turn to one of the biggest emergencies that Hawaii's native forests are facing right now, which is the rapid Ohia death, a fungal pathogen, and thousands of our native Ohia trees have died. And Ohia is significant because this tree makes up 80% of our native forests and is ecologically and culturally the most important native plant in Hawaii. And of course, our Ohia forests have a lot to do with our watersheds. So one of the ground personnel from the federal and state stakeholders, including the USFS personnel from the Institute of Pacific Islands Forestry in Region 5 with state and private grants, are trying to answer several critical questions about this disease, including transmission and resistance. And we still need the resources to do the proper investigations and research. What can the Forest Service recommend to Hawaii as it relates to rapid Ohia death, based on lessons learned and best practices when you have been confronted with other tree diseases in other states? And would an incident command structure be helpful to identify and direct resources to help Hawaii? And are there creative ways that we can engage expertise across the Forest Service on this topic? And what other resources may be available for assistance?
Well, Senator, we are working very closely with the Agricultural Resource Service and also the University of Hawaii to be able to bring all of our resources together to be able to, first of all, understand how this is being transmitted, and to be able then to look at some ways to be able to reduce the spread of this. And then also we're doing work to look at genetic resistance, to be able to find which trees are able to fight off this fungus. This fungus has been in Hawaii for a while, but it's just recently has gone into the trees. And so we need to understand what is causing that to occur. And it may be just another one of the indicators is we see the changing climate, that we're seeing fungus that's been in our environment for many years, all of a sudden start creating a problem. We're seeing the same thing with bats, with white nose syndrome. So what we're looking at is to be able to bring all the resources together to quickly understand what's going on and be able to figure out how we can stop this. The other thing we need to probably look at is how to stop the spread. So if there's some things that we can do to be able to get out in front of this. And I also know that there are some trials that are going on with some, some fungicides that may also prove effective. The problem with that is that it's such a large area. And that may be very helpful in a specific area for a few trees around a person's home, et cetera. But to be able to stop this, we're going to have to, I think, go beyond finding that solution. So those are the things we're continuing to work on. And there's urgency to be able to quickly get out in front of this. But at the same time, it's just another example of why our research and development program is so important, so that we do have the scientists, we have the capacity to be able to address these emerging issues.
So do you have enough money in your fiscal year 17 budget proposal to do the kinds of things that you're doing? Because it's not just happening in Hawaii. These kinds of unusual occurrences are happening across the country, I would imagine. And so you need to have a robust capacity for research, tests, what have you. Is there enough money in the budget? Well, there's never enough.
Yeah, so I'm pleased that we're able to ask for the amount of funding we do have. Yes, and then once again, until we fix this wildfire suppression funding situation, we're not going to be able to be in a position to be able to ask. So I do feel that we have an adequate level in our research and development. But it's one of the things we need to be aware of, though, as there's going to be more and more invasives, more and more issues. Research and development is definitely an area that we need to increase our investment in.
Thank you. And I thank the chairwoman's leadership in the wildfire issue.
Look forward to working with you.